Okay, so what's the easiest way of playing power chords? Well, even though they're chords, we don't actually want to have the same hand position as I've recommended for the open chords. We don't want to have our fingers quite as high over the strings as is necessary for the open chords. It's going to be much flatter, much more similar to what was explained in the fretting riffs section of the starter lessons. So if we just have a little look at the close-up, I'll just show you what I mean. So I'm going to play a power chord on fret 5, we're going to play an A again with the root note on string 6, and just have a look where my thumb is to start with. So that is right behind fret 5 and it's pretty much halfway down the neck. Okay, so if you remember, we don't want to be too high up. Okay, we want to be further down the neck, so I'm using the pad of my thumb, keeping my thumb straight and relaxed, and this just allows me to reach round a bit more comfortably to fret the shape. Now my fingers are going to be really flat. Okay, I don't want to be reaching round too much because that's putting too much strain on my fingers there. So just keep my fingers nice and flat, and if you have a look at my first finger, it's in fact even flatter than my third finger. I'm definitely using the pad, pushing down the string with the pad of my finger as opposed to the tip. So this is just on string 6, but I'm even rolling it off slightly, so that just means I'm using a bit more of the side of my finger, so it's almost leaning towards the lower frets. It's not too flat, and it's definitely not using the other side, which would be leaning up towards the higher frets. Don't want that. We want to roll it off a little bit. And this in fact allows us to just stretch our fingers out a bit more, makes it much more comfortable, much easier to stretch up and fret the higher frets. So my third finger can get away with just being a little bit higher, a little bit less flat than my first finger. Now, often when people are playing, because it is a bit of a stretch for beginners, often when people are playing they find that their fingers are bunched up a little bit. So all four fingers even there are quite scrunched up there. Now that's a sign there's too much tension in your fingers. So what you want to try and do is just keep your fingers relaxed, so there's actually a gap, there's actually distance between your fingers there, and that means that you're going to have a relaxed enough position to be able to play power chords comfortably. Now you might find this quite difficult, which is fine, because it's much more of a stretch than everything else we've been looking at so far. So if that's the case, what you can do is you can keep your fingers flat on the strings, so it doesn't matter about the tips of your fingers, my fingers are just flat on all 6 strings there, but it's important that you're able to have your fingers relaxed so that there's distance between all of them. Keeping my thumb in the same position as described before, but my fingers relaxed and spread apart a bit. And then from there, just see if you can reposition fingers 1 and 3 so that you're fretting fret 5 on the bottom string with your first finger and fret 7 on string 5 with your third finger. So once you're able to play a power chord, one power chord effectively, how do you change between power chords effectively? Well, it's because it's a bit of a stretch, this shape. If you relax your hand too much when you move up or down to another one, your fingers are just going to get a bit closer together as you move up. So for example, if I move up from fret 5 and I'm going to move up to fret 7, if I allow my fingers to relax too much, when I move up, my third finger's just gone a bit too close to my third one. It's in fact on the wrong fret, so I'm going to have to faff around and get the shape back again. So if I go back to 5, what I'm going to do this time, I'm just going to retain a little bit of tension in my fingers, just a tiny bit of tension, just keep them a little bit tighter so that you keep the same relative distance between finger 1 and finger 3, because if you remember, power chords are all exactly the same shape wherever you play them on the neck of the guitar. So if I move up again from fret 5 up to fret 7, keep my fingers a bit tighter, then I've straight away got the power chord shape. I've got the new power chord with the same shape, and it's exactly the same if I move back down the neck. So this time I'm moving my first finger down to fret 3 and I keep my fingers a little bit tight, and this allows me to keep the same shape, so I don't have to worry so much about my third finger. I'm reasonably confident that it's going to be in the right place because I'm keeping that same relative distance between the chords. And so once you get used to that, you can actually move up and down quite quickly in between the chords, like this for example. Okay, so the only other thing to talk about is notes, power chords that are fretted on the A string, with the root notes on the A string. Now, if you remember, we were saying you only actually want to strum through the two notes that you're fretting in the shape. So in this case, we're just going to strum through strings 5 and 4. But quite often you use downstrokes when you're playing power chords. So if that's the case, then we've actually got this string 6, which is now open, which is going to get in the way, and it might make it sound really muddy. Could get an interesting sound out of it, but for most cases we don't want to hear that at all. So the easiest way would just be to be quite accurate with your picking, with your strumming, and just strum through strings 5 and 4. However, if you want to be a bit more aggressive, a bit more enthusiastic with your strumming, then you're going to have to find a way of muting string 6, because you're going to catch it somewhere along the lines in the song. So the easiest way of doing that, by keeping this same flat first finger position. Remember, we're using the pad of our first finger to push down the root note on string 5. This time I'm going to just push up a little bit so that the tip of my first finger is in fact muting or catching string 6. So I'm not allowing it to ring through to the open string there. So here's a normal power chord position. So I can hear string 6 there. So if I just reposition my first finger a tiny little bit, I've muted string 6, and it doesn't sound too bad when I strum through it along with the other chords, other notes in the power chord. And so then that allows you to shift up and down and play a little bit more enthusiastically, and hopefully you're not going to be able to hear the open E, open string 6. Now you might find that actually quite hard to start with because you've only just started looking at power chords. So if that's the case, don't worry about it too much. You're just going to have to be a bit more accurate with your strumming to start with, and you can come back to it at a later date and try and perfect this positioning once you feel comfortable just playing a couple of songs using power chords.